Hello and welcome to another video. It's Weep Union and I'm here with another update on the whole front line on the 18th of February 2023. I'll be starting out on the Luhansk front as the Russian forces continue their attacks in the direction of Sinkivka, which is this village to the north of Kupiansk, which is the last village between the Russian forces and the village chain that is by the east of the Uskal River next to Kupiansk. Kupiansk is the main railway and supply hub for the Ukrainian forces on this part of the front line. Any attack against Svatove will have to go through Kupiansk. So with the Russian forces closing in on cutting off this road, they'll be able to significantly decrease the amount of supplies that goes to these frontline villages to the east of Kupiansk. At the same time, the Russian forces are attacking in the direction of Stelmahivka, which is by the river line which goes through the west of Svatove, and by controlling these villages here by the river line, the Russian forces will be able to have a stronger defensive position against the Ukrainian forces. Further south, west of Chernopopivka, the Russian forces also continue their attacks in this direction as they attempt to reach the river line by the river to the east of Liman, and this is also to get a better defensive position west of Kreminna, or even to stage a further attack in the direction of Liman. Further south in the Siversk front, the Russian forces are attacking in the direction of Wyemka, Vesele and Rusulivka as well as Fedorivka, as they try to take control over these villages to the north of the Soledar area. This is to gain control over the villages to the south of the heights that is south of Siversk. This will allow them to have a better defensive position in the direction of Siversk, as well as a good flank to advance northwestwards and encircle Siversk rather than going straight ahead towards it. As for the north of Bakhmut, we see that the Russian forces are continuing their attacks northwest of the E40 highway. They try to extend their zone of control of the highway as they attack in the direction of Selesnyanske, where they have controlled the river line between Vasyukivka and Selesnyanske. So we'll most likely see the Russian forces attacking in this direction as they have obtained a good flanking position, as they have control of the river line, which allows them to properly set up defensive positions in this area. At the same time, with the capture of Perskovivka, the Russian forces are now attacking in the direction of Dubovo-Vasilivka as well as Berhivka, as they try to gain further control over these villages, which will allow them to cut off yet another road and allow them to advance towards the final road, which goes in and out of Bakhmut. The significance of these villages isn't just that there's a road that goes through them, but also the fact that there's only Yahidne and Bohdanivka as the next two villages before the final road between Bakhmut and Jazov Yar is cut off. This means that if fighting reaches Yahidne and Bohdanivka, the Russian forces will be able to attack in the direction of the highway, operationally encircling Bakhmut. And if they capture Yahidne and Bohdanivka, they will be able to completely cut off the final road. And I say the final road because the T0504 highway that the Ukrainian forces recently recaptured, the bridge that goes across the canal, has been demolished. This means that the Ukrainian forces cannot make use of this road. So the final road is this one going through Bakhmut into Jazov Yar. And fighting continues to the west of Petrorodne in the direction of Yahidne from the east. This means that the Russian forces are now attacking the residential area at the very northern outskirts of Bakhmut. If the Russian forces manage to break through this position, they can already attack Yahidne from the east. And with a focus on the attacks to the east, the soldiers defending Yahidne will have to be split between defending Berhivka and defending the northern outskirts of Bakhmut. By splitting the Ukrainian forces into two, the Russian forces will be able to break through in one of these areas and encircle the second one. If the Russian forces take Berhivka, they can go around and take Yahidne, cutting off the Ukrainian forces on the northern outskirts of Bakhmut. And if they take the northern outskirts of Bakhmut, they can cut off the Ukrainian forces in Berhivka, as they'll be able to cut the road between Berhivka and Bakhmut. And at the same time, the Russian forces are attacking in the direction of Dubovo-Vasilivka, which means that if they cut off the road between Yahidne and Berhivka, the Ukrainian forces will not be able to retreat in the direction of Dubovo-Vasilivka either, as the Russian forces are also attacking that direction. That means that it will be encircled. As for Bakhmut itself, the Russian forces continue their attacks in the northeastern as well as eastern outskirts of Bakhmut, as well as the cemetery southwest of Bakhmut. As for the northeastern part, according to a Deep State map update, there is this video evidence of the fighting. Although it is small, you can see here that there's some sort of infantry fighting vehicle that is fighting within this area. It was geolocated to be right here on the northeastern area, right by the outskirts of the zone of control of the Russian forces, which means that they are attacking in this area right now. And finally, in the southwestern area of the Bakhmut front, we see that the Russian forces are continuing their attacks in the direction of Ivanivsk, as well as to the heights south of Chasiv, as they try to regain the zone of control over the areas that has been recently taken by the Ukrainian forces in the recent counterattack by the TO504 highway. They need to regain the control over these heights to the west of Ivanivsk if they want to take control over the village. Moving on to the Donetsk front, we see that the Russian forces continue their attacks west of Vodiane as they try to take control over the whole village rather than just this beachhead across the river line. They also continue their attacks in the direction of Marinka, Pobieda and Novomikhailivka as they try to gain control over these villages, which will allow them to get a better control over the highway that goes between Donetsk and Pokrovsk, and it will also allow them to create a buffer zone between the city of Donetsk and the Ukrainian forces. Finally, the Russian forces continue their attacks in the direction of Wildar. This is a continuous attack against a city that is heavily fortified, and the Russian forces have been conducting these assaults for over a week now. And so far there's been no success other than completely obliterating the Dhaka area, which means that no units are in this area as it is completely destroyed, and there would be no cover if you went there. That is all for the frontline update. Then we have two important pieces of news. First of all, from the Moscow region, we see that the Russian forces have promoted two of the generals fighting in this war to the rank of Colonel General. The rank of a Colonel General gives the right to command up to 100,000 troops or an army, while a 4-star general would be able to command up to 400,000 or an army corps. And then we have the final rank, which is the Field Marshal, which is in this case Gerasimov from Russia and Salishny from Ukraine. They have the right to control and command the whole army. So with these two new promotions, that is two generals to command each 100,000 troops. According to the Israeli army officer Grigory Tamar, the Russian forces have conducted a large gathering of troops in the Donbas region, and they claim this is a preparation for a breakthrough. What I believe their intelligence is suggesting is that the Russian forces are looking to encircle and take control over Bakhmut, and once they encircle Bakhmut, there will be a large chunk of the Ukrainian army being encircled, which will give the opportunity for a breakthrough. So the Russian forces have a couple of extra lines of units in the back around the Luhansk region as well as in the Mariupol area that are waiting for the Russians to take control over Bakhmut, or at least encircle it, and then they will launch a large-scale offensive within the Donbas region in the direction of Wildar, as well as the north of Bakhmut, and finally in the direction of Kreminna towards Liman. By attacking the northern edges, the center, and the southern edges of the Donbas region, they're looking to take control over the whole Donbas region before the Ukrainians can be able to set up new defensive lines after the fall of Bakhmut. So essentially they were looking to take control over the Donbas region rather than a large-scale offensive over the whole eastern Ukraine. This is a very safe operation as the Russian forces with the new mobilization have a large numerical superiority, which will allow them to conduct such an operation and not have any issues with doing so, according to both manpower and equipment. So with this, it's actually very interesting, as everyone were expecting large-scale offensive on the east of Ukraine, but it seems that they'll be doing a small-scale one, at least for now. And that is all for this update. Thank you all for watching, and have a great day.